Welcome. Welcome again. Welcome for the first time. You're always so welcome to be here. I hope you had a good week and were able to continue to enjoy these warm and beautiful late summer days. I am finding it difficult to place myself in September on the first days of autumn, no less, as the weather seems to send a far different message. I would clarify, I am exceedingly grateful for that message, but I often have to stop and think for a moment when I need to remember the date or the time of year. My impulse is to say it's July or August or something. One would think that with the high holy days looming, it would not be so difficult to remember what time of year this is. I am acutely aware of the imminence of the holidays, cued especially in nature by the waning moon of Elul, the Hebrew month that immediately precedes and leads into the high holy days. It is at this time of year that I greatly appreciate our ancestors' reliance on the moon as the basis of the Jewish calendar and of their adherence to the phases of the moon and the progression of the days of each month as the cue for observances, celebrations, and required preparations. As I indicated a few weeks ago, at the beginning of the month, this is the time of year when Jewish clergy work overtime. On clergy websites, there are exchanges of ideas, sermon ideas, sharing of resources, suggestions for materials, and descriptions of innovative programs that will be tried for the first time this year. There are also many synagogue websites and other Jewish websites that offer an Elul thought for each day of this month. As Rosh Hashanah begins this Sunday evening, I thought I might share with you some of the ideas and reflections that I have found intriguing or compelling in some way. In one of the daily jewels of Elul offerings, it's called Jewels of Elul, a licensed clinical social worker, a woman by the name of Abigail Taubman, shared the wisdom she learned from a college professor who introduced her to the concepts of healing justice, anti-racism, and decolonization. She writes, as a white woman, this was the first time I learned about white privilege, saviorism, and altruism. Despite my discomfort, I knew that I needed to lean in and learn more. She continues, I showed up to college with the intention of majoring in psychology, but after a few months, I began to question whether a traditional major would be sufficient. With guidance, I created a major called Community-Based Mental Health. The trusted communities had I'll just go back. I created a major called Community-Based Mental Health that trusted communities had the inherent resilience and resources to create their own solutions. I will always hold close the quote my professor had in her email signature by Lila Watson. If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. My professor's teachings showed me that if my intention was to help or fix, I might as well walk the other way. Instead, I chose to recognize my interconnectedness to all people, listen to the needs of individuals and communities who I am supporting, and center their stories and quest for liberation. So let us take our first break to breathe, with these thoughts inspiring our breathing in and out, as she speaks of a change of attitude. It can be almost imperceptible for some, and it can take some time to learn for others. But it's important. If my intention was to help or fix, I might as well walk the other way. Instead, I chose to recognize my interconnectedness to all people, listen to the needs of individuals and communities who I am supporting, and center their stories and quest for liberation. So let us find our meditative postures with our feet planted firmly on the floor, or unless we're lying down, in which case we can't plant our feet firmly on the floor, but we can lie down firmly on the floor or on the ground, or we can sit in our chairs or stand. But let us find a way that we can be comfortable and also attentive. And then we may want to soften our gaze or close our eyes so that nothing that is right in front of us claims our attention. And then let us find those places that fight against us, that make it harder to function in the world, I think. The places of stress and anxiety, of concern, of worry, that manifest themselves in our bodies in ways we recognize far too easily. So let us let go from the tops of our heads. Imagine that our scalps, our hair is softly part of us. Let us unwrinkle our brows, wiggle our ears, even in our imaginations or with our hands. Let us release our smiles or our grimaces or any way in which we tend to hold our expressions. We might allow our jaws to fall slack, our tongues just to loll around inside our mouths. Our tongues actually are a muscle, a very strong muscle. And so they can get caught in tension and anxiety. And I don't know about you, but my neck could use some release, some twirling around, some oh my. And let us extend that release to our shoulders. In whatever way works for you, you might scrunch them up around your ears and let them go. You might roll them back, roll them forward, one at a time, both at a time, whatever works for you. And we release our arms, our elbows, our forearms, our wrists, wiggle our fingers, and move inside. And imagine that our tummies are relaxing, and that our esophagus and the organs that lead into our tummies are just being. And as we release our tummies, we release our waists, and imagine that our hips and our legs and our knees, our calves, our shins are all softening, letting go, releasing whatever they've been holding. Our ankles as well, our toes, our feet, our heels. Our feet take so much punishment. Oh my goodness. And let us breathe in. into all those softened places. We learned last week we might want to count 5 for an inhale. We might want to hold for a count of 5 as well. And then release on 5. That is one way to command our attention with our breathing. The jewel of Elul that I just shared with you is conceived as a way in which we stand on the shoulders of others. In this case, this licensed clinical social worker was standing on the shoulders of one of her professors who had taught her to look at life differently, to look at other human beings differently. It is one of the agendas of the High Holy Days, is for each of us to examine our attitudes, examine our conceptions and preconceptions, to see where we might make the adjustments, to see if there are different ways of framing some of what we have started to take for granted. Abigail Taubman had a wonderful teacher and her professor who helped her to reformulate her ideas and her assumptions about other human beings, especially those whom she thought were less advantaged than she. The High Holy Days are a very now-centered observance. Right now, we look inward. Right now, we evaluate. Right now, we adjust. Right now, we exhale to the count of 5. And inhale. And luxuriate in a hold. And exhale. Through the Institute for Jewish Spirituality website, in response to a request for resources about how our experiences and actions, both good and bad, leave a mark on our souls, I learned of a new idea called Earthseed, one word, Earthseed, whose website describes itself as new religion based on the science fiction of Olivia Butler. Her book, I believe, is entitled Earthseed. The principal tenets of Earthseed are: 1, God is change. 2, shape God. 3, the destiny of Earthseed is to take root among the stars. Excuse me a second, let me just turn this off. I found these thoughts provocative. I don't think it is saying that it is founding a new religion, but that there are new ways of perceiving the religion that we hold. And it was shared by rabbis, rabbis primarily, not Cantors so much. I found this formulation to be intriguing and adaptable. I quote again from the website: God is change. This is the first tenet of Earthseed. God is change, is literal truth. The God of Earthseed is not a person. The God of Earthseed does not love us or hate us or watch over us or know us at all. The God of Earthseed just is. God is power, infinite, irresistible, inexorable, indifferent. The one irresistible force in the universe is change. Everything in the universe changes. Every living thing, every bit of matter, all the energy in the universe changes in some way. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Whether you're a human being, an insect, a microbe, or a stone, this verse is true. Everyone knows on an intellectual level that change is inevitable, but many people don't feel it on an emotional level. And so they create gods, supernatural authority figures, to stand between them and change. Big Daddy God, big cop God, big ruler God. For many people, God is just another name for whatever makes them feel special and protected. Earthseed deals with ongoing reality, not with supernatural authority figures. As wind, as water, as fire, as life, God is both creative and destructive, demanding and yielding, sculptor and clay. God is infinite potential. God is change. To say that God is change is not the same as saying that God changes. It seems to me that they are asserting that God is change in the way that nature is change, and they are trying to remove anthropomorphic images from our concept of God. The whole subject of change is very much on people's minds right now. I don't think it would be too much of an exaggeration to say that our whole country, not to mention the world, is suffering from some form of PTSD in the aftermath of the pandemic and all of the changes that created. So those ideas about change and about God is change and God has nothing to do with images of human beings is an interesting way of looking at our faith. Finally, this is one of the times of year when I turn for inspiration and understanding to Rabbi Irving Greenberg and to his book, The Jewish Way, which I believe is one of the finest books on Jewish life and thought I have ever encountered. By way of explaining the High Holy Days, he begins with the following. Judaism is a religion of life against death. Death negates redemption. It is the end of growth, of freedom. Judaism's general response to the fact of death is to fight back. Life is given the highest priority. All but 3 laws of the Torah are overruled to save a life from death. When someone dies, the mourner steps forward and through recitation of the Kaddish testifies that this family has not yielded to the crushing defeat of death. In effect, the survivors pledge to carry on for the deceased as well as for themselves in the army of the Lord among the soldiers of life. In essence, the Kaddish prayer affirms that God's kingdom of total perfection and total life will be brought into being. And we pray it will be brought into being speedily. The one notable exception to the arm's length treatment of death is the period of the High Holy Days. During this cluster of days, This tradition deliberately concentrates the individual's attention on death. Human beings cannot be mature until they encompass a sense of their own mortality. To recognize the brevity of human existence gives urgency and significance to the totality of life. To confront death without being overwhelmed, driven to evasions, or dulling the senses is to be given life again as a daily gift. People generally experience this gift through a trauma, an accident, or a critical illness, or the death of someone close. Too often the encounter fades as the presence of death recedes and the round of normal life becomes routine reality. In the Jewish calendar, the days of awe structure the imaginative encounter with death into an annual experience in the hope that the experience will recur to liberate life continually. In the period of the High Holy Days, our tradition guides us to take up the challenge of death on 3 levels. One is to deal with the constant, gradual, partial encroachment of death in one's own life. Life is also a process of dying. Routine and stagnation are forms of death in life. People often stop growing long before they are recognized as dead. Such a dead person cannot be an agent of redemption. The tradition holds that the key to vital living is perpetual renewal of life. It seeks to attain that renewal by generating a continual process of examining life and constant rebirth. The awareness of being judged for life and death is a stimulus to stop living routinely. The second level of the challenge is to deal with encountering abrupt, total death itself. Starting before and going through this period, we Jews focus on the vulnerability of life and the limits of the human. People rediscover that our entire life is dependent upon God's mercy. By miracle, we stand. The encounter with non-existence is set off by the awareness of creation. Whatever is born dies. By tradition, Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of the world or of humanity. This birthday, that is New Year's Day, is not the occasion for a party to wipe out the passage of time in the oblivion of celebration, but a time for taking stock. The possibility of non-being leads one to the questions. What is it all worth? What has been accomplished? By what merit does it still stand? From the combined themes of death and of judgment comes the central image underlying the days of awe, and that is the trial. We envision a trial in which the individual stands before the one who knows all. Our lives are placed on the balance scales. A thorough assessment is made. Is my life contributing to the balance of life? Or does the net effect of my actions tilt the scale toward death? My life is being weighed. I am on trial for my life. Who shall live and who shall die? This image jolts each person into a heightened awareness of the fragility of life. This question poses the deeper issue. If life ended now, would it have been worthwhile? Is one aware and grateful for the miracle of daily existence? The trial image captures the sense of one's life being in someone else's hands. The shofar of Rosh Hashanah proclaims that the judge before whom there is no hiding is now sitting on the bench. Sharpened self-awareness, candid self-judgment, and guilt are activated by the possibility that a death sentence may be handed down. Like standing before a firing squad, a trial for life wonderfully concentrates the mind. It's one way of putting it. Then the High Holy Days move to meet the third challenge of mortality, to harness death into a force for life. On Yom Kippur, Jews enact death by denying themselves the normal human pleasures, It is not a more morbid experience, however, because this encounter with death is in the service of life. The true goal is a new appreciation of life. To know how fragile the shell of life is to learn to handle it with true grace and delicacy. Only one who realizes the vulnerability of loved ones can treasure every moment with them. The encounter with death turns the individual toward life. Death can only be opposed by life. Death, just as death in life, can only be opposed by growing in life. Instead of standing there, letting death constantly invade life, Judaism strikes back by raiding the realm of death and turning this encounter into a spur to life. The climax comes in living out death on Yom Kippur. On this day, traditional Jews put on a kittel, a white robe similar to the shroud worn when one is buried. The life processes of eating, drinking, washing, and sexuality are stopped for 24 hours. Guilt in the form of confession, encounter with the dead in Yizkor memorial prayers, and the final trial, judgment, dominate the days. But then relief from sin emerges on Yom Kippur. God forgives. The Lord your God will open your heart and your children's heart for the sake of giving you life. This is why the tone of the days of awe is basically hopeful, even joyful. This is why the liturgy bursts with life. Remember us for life, sovereign who loves life. Write us in the book of life for your sake, creator of life. Let us resume our breathing in of our lives and breathing in this moment and our commitment to the moments yet to come. This breath that we inhale is the stuff of our life, is the basis of our life. The ability to breathe in and out affirms that we are alive. So let us breathe in that gratitude and that commitment to make of this moment a grand moment, a good moment. Doesn't have to be grand. A moment in which we recognize the goodness that we enjoy, the Creator that made and makes our lives possible. The sense of vitality that we feel in our bodies. Even in the face of a yawn, a desire to doze in the middle of the day or the end of the day or the beginning of the day. Let us breathe in. And breathe out again. By way of conclusion, and hopefully inspiration for the holy days that are upon us, I quote again from Rabbi Irving Greenberg. This period seeks nothing less than the removal of sin and the renewal of love. Those who confront their own guilt and failure in human and divine relationships in the context of community oneness and divine forgiveness can correct errors, develop new patterns, and renew life. For I do not desire the death of the wicked, but that they turn from their paths and live. To turn is to be reborn. The people of Israel come out of Yom Kippur reborn, forgiven and pure, at one with God. I pray that you will be inscribed and sealed in the book of life, and that the days ahead will bring you a sense of communal support, a sense of well-being in your heart and mind, a sense of renewal for the days and the weeks, and we pray the years to come. God bless you. Shana Tova Umituka, may be a good and sweet year. I will see you next time, although the schedule of the next couple of weeks will be a little bit sketchy. But stay tuned for sure. God bless.